for
rapid fire. You
it's
jump
time
in.
for some G5 love, man. And no, you're totally right. Memphis, South Florida, a little bit less shine after that UAB victory over Memphis last week, but still two of the best G5 teams. USF, my preseason G5 team. I think you had them in your playoff bracket when we did that last week too, right?
Yes.
This is another big one. USF can't afford to stumble because there's a couple of teams still chomping at the bit to try and get in the 12-team playoff. Super interesting matchup, man. I'm going to circle one other one. And again, this goes to my fixation on the ACC and everything that's going on. I just find it so interesting when conferences are chaotic.
Oh yeah.
Virginia going to North Carolina, Virginia in the driver's seat again. They have everything to play in front of them. They can continue to box Miami out of this playoff because now, or out of the ACC championship game, excuse me, because now Miami is really sitting there like, okay, we need Georgia Tech to lose, we
Yeah.
need Virginia to lose, and then we need Louisville to pick up another loss somewhere. So
No.
Miami really on the outside looking in of the conference race. I don't know how the tiebreakers would break down if Virginia and if Tech were to lose one. Not entirely sure, but just super chaotic and super fun, man.
It really is. I always love to point out a rivalry too. We got Michigan at Michigan State. You would assume Michigan will roll, but we all know rivalries, man. Something different happens in those games, and it's one of the best parts of college football. Hey, let's
One
move on
last
here. Oh, yeah,
oh
go for it. Go for it.
no, I just wanted to circle one last one really quickly. Tennessee going to Kentucky. Super
Yes.
interesting. Does Tennessee get off the mat? Again, that's a team we're going to get into some playoff on the outside looking in, slash some fringe contenders. I still have Tennessee making the playoff. I predicted them to lose that game to Alabama last week. I think they get off the mat, but they have to get off the mat. It was a
Yep.
tough loss to swallow because Tennessee has, again, that's the ultimate game of what ifs, where what if they don't throw a 99-yard pick six to end that half, and what if they're only down two at halftime as opposed to double digits.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Super interesting game to me. Kentucky, they play teams kind of hard and they play them kind of close and make it a little uglier. That Texas game, that Ole Miss game earlier this year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Just something to throw out there.
Yeah, no, that's a good word. That's a good word. And that's a perfect segue into what we want to talk about. And if you have a little structure that you want to go off of here, go for it. But I'll add to what you have to say with Tennessee. If they're going to make the playoff, based on precedent here, I'm going based on precedent. The playoff didn't give a single 9-3 team an at-large spot. There was, the only three-loss team that made it in was a conference champion, right? So they've set that precedent that they favor that loss column more than anything. I think that could change this year. I do. But going off of precedent, if you're Tennessee with two losses, you're basically in must-win mode. And if you want to give yourself, do you want to really leave it up to the committee or do you want to control your own destiny? And a 10-2 Tennessee team is going to be in the playoff, Reagan. I firmly
Yeah,
believe. I don't
I
think you
agree.
disagree with that. And so they're going to have to also play Vanderbilt at the end of the year, Reagan. That could be a playoff playing game. We could be looking at a Vanderbilt Tennessee matchup at the end of the year, 9-2, 9-2. And this has never been really even considered much of a rivalry, Reagan, because Tennessee just walks over to Vanderbilt, takes it down, and moving on. But this year, this is a huge game.
Can you imagine how Rock and Nealon will be when Vanderbilt comes to town if both are sitting there with one loss if Vanderbilt manages to get there with only one and Tennessee sitting there with two losses? Man, this rivalry is very much in the same mold as Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, with how one-sided it is. It's probably even more one-sided. I didn't look it up before we started recording. My gut says it's way more one-sided even than that rivalry, which is considered the most one-sided rivalry in all of college football, pretty much. Super interesting, man.
Yeah. There's already several two-loss teams. We talked about LSU. Is there any direction you want to go here? Illinois is kind of in must-win
Yeah.
mode. Elimination Saturday. They gotta win at Washington on the road. That's not an easy one. Notre Dame, a two-loss team. Where do you want to go with this?
So I want to start by saying I don't think that if there is a three-loss team that can get in this year. I don't believe it.
Wow.
I don't. Because if you're sitting here looking at if you're looking at the rankings right now, Your highest two-loss rated team is Notre Dame, ranked team, excuse me, is Notre Dame. They're sitting there at 12. Again, you got to play the games. These games are not played on paper.
Yeah.
But Notre Dame doesn't look like there's going to be another loss. But if they were to lose, they're probably on the outside looking in. If you go by conference, the ACC is not going to have a two-loss team in all likelihood in their conference championship game. I don't see it. The
Yeah.
SEC, maybe if A&M kind of falls on their face a little bit, and then maybe if Georgia were to lose and get in there as a two-loss team. But the SEC, I don't see it happening. Big Ten is going to be either 11 and 1 and or 12 and 0, two teams, Indiana and Ohio State. Maybe one of them picks up a loss. Again, Ohio State has that really hard game at the end of the year that they always struggle with.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then Big 12, again, there's a hodgepodge of teams right there at the top, all undefeated, one loss. I don't see a three-loss team getting in this year. I really don't.
That's a great call, Reagan, and it's gonna get really messy. I think that, and let me say this too, right off the bat. I um I will raise my hand and say I was never for the 12 team playoff. I really wasn't. But I also think that it has brought us some good things. I've turned the corner a little bit on it. And I think this year there's more parity in the sport than I anticipated. And I go, you know what? Last year, I wasn't a huge fan of the product of the first round games, to be honest with you, and the
Agreed.
format of the auto buys. So I think that really messed with it, but hopefully that gets cleaned up a little this year. We know the change that's been made. But Reagan, I also don't know if it's a bad thing for the sport to have a little bit of debate and to have teams at the end of the year trying to put their resumes out there. It's what sets the sport apart a little bit. It's the direction that college football has chosen to go, but it's also like if we tap into this, it is fun.
Oh, I agree. My big thing with the 12 team playoff, and I think you'd agree with this, is the concern about the regular season and the diminishing of
Yes.
games in Saturday in the fall with that weather, everything that makes college football beautiful, special, and different than every other sport, college or pro, is the importance of those games. And I think the 12 team playoff represents to a lot of people, myself included, a real fear that those nameless, faceless folks with their hands on the levers of power are pushing this sport more and more to be the NFL light, to be
Yes.
to be the G League for the NFL, which means more playoff teams, more importance on money, more importance on those kinds of things as opposed to what made it beautiful and the golden goose to begin with, which was those games on Saturday.
Yes.
Um, if and again, they're already talking about taking this thing to 16 next year originally, but they pushed that a year. So I still think that 12 is too many because I don't believe if you left it at 12 for 10 to 15 years, you'll never see a team in that 9 to 12 range, in my mind, make a real run all the way to the chip. Go back to last year, you had Notre Dame and you had Ohio State. The Ohio State, I believe, was the 7 seed, right?
Yeah, they were right in that 6, 7, 8 area. I can't
Correct.
remember off the
And
top of my head.
Notre Dame was right there as well in that 6, 7, 8 range, I
Mm-hmm.
believe,
Because they
because
both
they
had home playoff games, so they couldn't have been nine
correct.
or higher.
Correct. And so that really is, in my mind, the cap on teams that can win it. But look, if things were left at 12, I wouldn't complain too much. I think the first round stuff will get ironed out. I think you're right. Um, but we'll see. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But there's some big elimination games this week, and just running through them, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. I know we touched on that a little bit.
So
Truly,
you
in my
think
mind,
that's elimination?
oh, because they're going to be on the outside looking in. At the very
Man.
least, they need some real chaos because one of them is not only going to be a two-loss team, but they're not going to have that tiebreaker over the other team. And
Yeah.
right, so
I
that's a
in that one,
potential
Reagan, I see Oklahoma as must win. I see Ole Miss. If they lose it, I think they could win out and they could be a 10-2 at large. Oklahoma's got a gauntlet, man.
potentially.
If Oklahoma loses, they're done. Like you're exactly right. But man, I'm not
I
saying it's
think
an easy road for Ole Miss, but I think it's navigable.
it's easier. I just pulled their schedule up and it's a little easier for sure. But I think the committee, when the playoff rankings come out in a couple of weeks, I think they're going to look at Ole Miss and say, who have you really beaten? I understand that you
Yeah,
really hung there with the Georgia team that I don't think anybody truly knows how good or bad that team is, other than
right.
you got to cut the head off the snake. And you've had two or three teams really that tried to cut the head off and they couldn't
Yeah.
in Tennessee, Auburn, and then Ole Miss. Uh, Bama played just enough keep away in the second half to get that win, and those other three couldn't. Um, We'll see. But another kind of elimination game, Missouri Vanderbilt. I know we talked about a
Yes.
little bit. That one I truly believe is for Missouri an elimination game.
I agree.
Vanderbilt more than likely an elimination game because again, Missouri is sitting there at 15, and if they beat Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt's going to drop. We all know that the brand means something to these people that are ranking these teams. They're going to struggle to get past that gold V.
Yeah. I mean, Missouri still has a ton in front of them too, man. You could be
Yeah.
playing an undefeated or one loss A&M next week. You still
LSU
have, oh yeah,
elimination game for sure. Three
yep,
losses, they're out. They might be in the coaching search. Tennessee elimination game potentially for them. Um, Arizona State, they might be facing
yes,
elimination. You know, they because of them still being in a chaotic Big 12 could find themselves with that one loss to Mississippi State not really meaning anything in the conference race. They might be
definitely,
able to find themselves in that game because of that Texas Tech tiebreaker,
yeah,
but
it's
more than
huge for
likely it's
them.
an elimination.
It really is, dude. I think too when you forecast a little bit, you mentioned some of those one-loss teams, some of those two-loss teams. I think when you forecast a little bit and you think about some of the, head-to-head matchups we've seen, common opponents, and just where teams' records are going to be, and the format of the auto bids, there's going to be some messy conversations, man. And I think like you were really early on this, Reagan. You said the ACC could really mess something up because you could have an ACC where Virginia and Georgia Tech get to the ACC championship. Let's just go wild for a second here, Reagan.
I know where you're going, and
Absolutely,
I love it. I love
absolutely
it.
crazy here. Okay, let's say both of those teams are 11-1. Let's say Georgia Tech's only loss is end of the year to Georgia, and let's say Miami is also 11-1. Who do you keep out of the playoff? And you already have all these crazy FSU fans and ACC fans that already think, man, SEC, ESPN, and ESPN hates us and they're out to get us. Which, by the way, ESPN has a contract with the ACC too, so I always think that's funny. But we all know the FSU noise and they hate Kirk Herbstreit and all that kind of stuff. What do you do there? Then you're also
Yeah,
going to probably
they hate
have,
Mr. Ohio State, Mr. Big
yeah,
Ten himself.
yes, so good. Oh, you're also going to probably have a 10-2 Notre Dame. And let's just say you also have, a 10-2 or even a 9-3 Texas A&M, Reagan. And you think about Notre Dame, Miami, Texas A&M. They all played each other. Like or A&M and Miami both played Notre Dame and they both beat them, but then Notre
Played
Dame's
out,
got that. It's
played
so
out
interesting.
rather than what really could be chaotic is say rather than a 9-3 A&M, imagine it's a 10-2 A&M with a similar level of resume to Notre Dame, and you've got an A&M team that doesn't make the SEC championship game. They would be the one team that could truly them and Miami could be the two teams that truly have a shot at boxing out a 10-2 Notre Dame. It's
Yeah.
nobody else. It's just them. There's a chaos scenario out there. Man, Virginia, Georgia Tech. Say Georgia Tech runs it and then
Yeah.
they lose to
Right.
Virginia. And then you've got an auto bid to Virginia.
Yep.
You can't leave out a 12-1 Georgia Tech team. They're not
No.
going to leave out an 11-1 Miami team. And all of a sudden, the ACC's got three. The G5 has that fourth. SEC champ fifth. Big Ten sixth. Big 12 seventh. Man, that gets really, really restrictive really quickly. And they're not going to
Yes.
leave out the loser of in my opinion. I don't think they're going to lose the loser of the Big Ten and the SEC championship game out more than likely. I don't think we'll have a scenario like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. And there's just so much, in that tier two. I think this year is the best way I can put it, but just that hodgepodge. And we're not even mentioning Alabama and Georgia. These teams are not invincible. Like Alabama's so-called made it through the toughest part of their schedule. Dude, they could drop one at South Carolina. You mentioned it. They're still going to have Oklahoma. They still have LSU. It could be a desperate LSU that needs to win, a desperate Oklahoma that needs to win. And end of the
And
year
then
in Auburn,
in that
Alabama could
spooky,
have a
spooky
desperate
place.
team. Every, every single matchup that they have the rest of the year in conference play, it could be a must win game for the other team. Georgia as well. Man, they've been through a gauntlet, but they've played a lot of tight games. Somebody could sneak up on them and get them here. You're going to have to play a very good, potentially undefeated Georgia Tech team that put you to the brink last year. What was it, 8 overtimes? Like this, you know what's crazy?
I
So,
lost count. I was rolling around. I hand to the Lord, I was rolling around on my carpet, sitting there saying, I can't deal with this. Will one of these teams win, please? I
which by
swear
the
that's
way,
a true story.
sidebar, the overtime 2 point conversion stuff is bogus. It's
It's garbage.
bogus. What? Come on, guys. Are we
You
really
know,
like going to play a full game and then, hey, after 2 overtimes, all of a sudden it's just 2 point conversions? Come on, give me a break.
yeah. No, you play this 60-minute football game and then you go through two overtime gauntlets, and then all of a sudden it's going to come down to a glorified penalty kick.
Come on. Okay,
So
so
I totally agree.
so when we talk about rankings, Reagan, this is just wild. Because right now, as it stands, on Thursday, October 23rd, between week 8 and week 9, Notre Dame is the number 12 team in the country. And they are 5-2. To be 10-2 at the end of the year, they still have to win 5 more games. And none of those are going to be resume builders. But they could be ranked 12th right now, heading into week 9, and like you said, boxed out of the playoff because of the format and because of the crazy scenario in the ACC and potentially the SEC. It is wild, man. When you talk about perception and how people are not used to this new era of the playoff, I think that's one of the craziest things to point to right now.
I think right now, let me know if you disagree with this. I think that there are really only two teams all but assured to make the playoff right now. I think Ohio State and Indiana are all but assured, barring a Mendoza injury, barring something catastrophic in either
Yeah,
case.
I totally
I think
agree. I can't
I
even
think
see a world where Ohio State and Indiana
no.
collapse and fall out of the playoff. I just can't.
Because I mean, let's in my mind, truly in my mind, the worst case for an Ohio State is that they lose to Michigan to end the year, and then they go lose to Indiana, and they're sitting there with two losses. They're still in the
They're in.
playoff at that point.
Yes.
Correct. And so, and then in Indiana's case, the worst case is I knock on wood, something catastrophic happens there and they fall one or two times, but I don't see that either of them getting boxed out, which leaves literally three through everybody else sitting there with everything to play for.
I
There's a
agree.
world where A&M gets knocked out. They're sitting there undefeated 7-0. They're not assured of anything right now. Alabama looks like a juggernaut right now in the SEC. They're absolutely not assured of anything right
Oh,
now.
100%.
They play that spooky place to end the year. You never know.
Yeah. Yes. And if we're going into that game with 2 losses, oh man. Okay, let me throw a crazy one at you. You brought up Ohio State, right? And one, let me just catch ourselves real quick. We both just immediately said, "Oh, 2 loss Ohio State in." Now that's assuming that that second loss is in the Big Ten championship game. But let's say it wasn't. Let's say they go 10-2, and that Michigan game at the end of the year boxes them out of the Big Ten championship. I think it's really easy to assume because they're the defending national champs, oh, they got the benefit of the doubt. They're going to run the table. If you start looking at their resume versus, some of these other teams, and especially if you have a boatload of 10-2 SEC teams that go, hey, we beat 3 ranked teams. How many has Ohio State beat? It's going to get interesting. And let's not forget, your Georgia Bulldogs, as the 2 time defending national champs, got boxed out of the 14 playoff. So there is precedent for this.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back just a little bit in that I think that
Please.
the 4 team world and the 12 team world are very different. I think that again, I think we had our shot and we didn't play well enough to win that game. I pulled up Ohio State's schedule. They have Penn State at home next week. They
That
go
was
to
supposed to be the
Purdue.
big one.
I know. They go to Purdue, UCLA at home, Rutgers at home, and then to that place up north in Ann Arbor.
Yeah. There's no way.
I don't see two losses there, but say Penn State musters something up and say Michigan musters something up. I'm going to give you two reasons why. I think as the defending champ in a 12-team world, they will get benefit of the doubt, number one. And then number two, that brand of Ohio State has built up so much cachet to where they've earned benefit of the doubt. They
Yep.
have. Very much like Alabama under Saban. It took everything to keep Alabama and Saban out of the playoff.
Yeah. I
You know,
agree. I
so
agree with you completely. I just think
I
that's
think
good for
it's
listeners to hear, for us to actually pause for a second and go, why is this? Now, here's a crazy spot, Reagan. Let's say Michigan, which, if you pull up their schedule, incredibly navigable until they play Ohio State. They've got Michigan State this weekend. Let's be honest, that's not a good Spartan football team. I know it's a rivalry, anything can happen, it's on the road, but you get through that one, you've got Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland, and then the Ohio State game. Michigan is likely, I believe, playing in a must win game in that rivalry game, trying to make it what, a fifth year in a row or a sixth year in a row? I believe it's fifth year in a row.
five. Five.
I
They're
mean,
currently four.
popcorn, get your popcorn ready. That's going to be
Yeah.
huge.
By the way, I think you said in your breakdown last week, get your popcorn ready for Ole Miss in Georgia. I'm going to shout you out there. That was a total popcorn game, man.
Oh, yeah.
Total popcorn game.
Shout out to Lane
Um,
Kiffin for that one.
right? Man, it's crazy. I'm just looking at the rankings right now, and I think that Oregon sitting there at number six at 6-1 might be the third most likely team to make the playoff.
I agree.
You know,
Totally.
just sitting there looking because they're not going to have to play a conference championship game in all likelihood. They're sitting there. They've got Wisconsin this week, the punching bags. They've got at Iowa. They get Minnesota at home. A big one against USC, and then to Washington. A tough place to play. Those last two games will be a little challenging,
Yeah.
but you know, I think that they've got a navigable schedule. What's crazy right now, though, is just all of the literally from A&M down. Everybody has everything to play for.
Yes.
Nobody's assured of anything.
So good. So good for the sport. So good for us as fans, man. It's exciting. Do you have any feel in the ACC? We've talked about the potential chaos scenario. Do you have any feel? Do you think, man, here's a game where Georgia Tech may drop one. Here's a game where Virginia may drop one. Do we have confidence in Miami at this point to go through the rest of the schedule unscathed?
So my feel right now, I'm going to start with Miami where you ended. I feel as though ironically Miami dropping a game a little earlier this year than they did last year. They didn't drop their first game until their ninth game last year, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a bad finish.
Ironically, them dropping a little earlier this year might be the juice to the generator that gets them going, kind of like Alabama against FSU earlier this year, where, look, let's not take anything away from Louisville, man. Like you said last week, Jeff Brom, what a guy.
Oh, yeah.
And and so I think that Miami will probably run the rest of the way unscathed. Um, what'll be interesting, I don't believe so. When you talk about Georgia Tech and you talk about Virginia, I don't believe either of those teams are good enough to just pencil in free wins.
Yep.
I don't believe that. And so you're asking me how my feel is right now? Chaotic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chaotic. I think that
I
the
agree.
ACC is basically what the Big 12 has been for the last half decade.
Yeah. Scheduling dynamics. I love pointing these out. You pointed out a great one earlier. Miami, no buys left. They had a weird early 3 week stretch with two buys that
Yeah.
sandwiched that Florida State game, which was a weird scheduling dynamic and a lot of road games to finish the year. The only juju that's sticking out to me here is the late road game, last week of the year, road game at Pitt. You remember the Mark Richt year, right, Reagan? They
Oh
were
yeah.
all set, number two team in the country, ready to go, and they lost that one to Pitt, and that boxed them out of the
Yeah.
ACC championship and playoff. I mean, talking about tiebreakers, it's bit them before it could bite them again this year.
Well,
You also
and let's
have that
not
that road SMU game, Reagan. SMU hasn't dropped an ACC game yet since they've joined the conference, and so that's I
outside
mean
of the championship game against Clemson.
that's
You're
right,
right.
that's right.
Yeah. And let's not discount going to Virginia Tech. And here's why. Miami is a warm weather team. It is a
Yes,
real NFL and college. If you look at warm weather teams in November and December on the road outdoors, it is a real disadvantage. It's a
Oh yeah.
real disadvantage. Just
Oh
like
yeah.
when teams forever, the Patriots hated playing the Dolphins when the Dolphins were
Yes.
pitiful in Miami in the warm. It's the same disadvantage. It's a weird dynamic.
It is. I love you pointing that out. I do feel though, like you said, the early loss for Miami, it's had to put them in a psychological disposition to go, we got to be locked in all year. And sometimes when your schedule isn't as favorable and you have more road games, sometimes that makes you even more locked in as a program and ready to go. So I hope that's the way it works out for Miami for their sake. But it's going to be interesting, man. All right, I asked you about the ACC. Do you have any feel in the Big 12? And I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but man, Arizona State gets a huge win at Texas Tech. Did we like now all of a sudden are we sleeping on Texas Tech because of that one loss when it's like, hey, that's a really good Arizona State program, defending Big 12 champs. BYU is also undefeated. Do we think they're going to run the table? Any feel on the Big 12, Reagan?
I am waiting. I am waiting eagerly for what is it? November 8th. BYU Texas Tech. Super interesting game. And then the big one, potentially second to last game of the year for BYU at Cincinnati. Cincinnati
Oh,
avo Cincinnati does not play Texas Tech. Cincinnati probably has the most manageable schedule of anybody left in the Big 12.
and
They
they're
get
undefeated in conference play.
they get Baylor at home. Then they go to Utah. That's not an easy game. Utah is still a very tough place to play. They get Arizona at home. They get BYU at home, and then they go to TCU. I don't have a good feeling for the Big 12. I really
Yeah.
don't. My default would still be I go coach quarterback, and
Yeah.
I respect Kenny Dillingham, and I until proven otherwise, things run through Arizona State in my mind.
Yeah.
But that is not. I don't have that same level of confidence, obviously, as even the SEC, where obviously I think everyone has a great feel in the Big Ten. It's a two-man race, really, at this point.
Yes.
But, I don't think that any other conference is, maybe the SEC. I'd lean certain ways. But what about you?
Yeah. Oh man. I like the fact that a lot of these teams still play each other because it's really easy to look at this Big 12 conference and see some two losses in that column, like in Iowa State, like at TCU. Man, you already mentioned it, right? Arizona State and Iowa State are going to play each other. BYU and Cincinnati are the only two undefeated in conference play. They're still going to play each other. There's a lot of carnage ahead. I said preseason, Reagan. I said the SEC and the Big 12 are more alike, and the ACC and the Big 10 are more alike. Now, I had a good feel in the Big Ten. The only problem I made was take out Penn State, replace them with IU. Pretty much has gone exactly how I've expected. Don't see anything crazy happening. ACC, same thing, except I did not see Virginia in this picture. I thought it would be Clemson. So I had Miami, Georgia Tech, Clemson as that tier one. Florida State as my maybe sleeper mystery team. That has not happened at all. So I will own that. But the Big 12 and the SEC, I mean, it's anybody's ball game, and I have
Yeah.
no feel whatsoever. I just trust Georgia in the SEC. To me, they've been the best program rolling 5-year period. They've been the standard in the sport. So I do trust them. And honestly, in SEC play so far, what my eyes have shown me with Alabama looks really good. That's why I picked them two as the rematch. Um, and kind of similarly, I trust Arizona State, but man, they have to go flawless from here on out. They're still going
Yeah.
to have a Big 12 championship rematch against Iowa State and a couple other tough games. It's carnage, man. Carnage awaits.
Yeah, I would agree with you in the SEC. I do think that right now Alabama has looked the best as of the last, what, 7 games basically. Um, I said this earlier. I've disrespected Texas A&M so far. They're sitting there undefeated.
Yeah.
They go obviously to LSU this weekend. They go to Missouri next weekend. If they can split those, they get South Carolina at home, Samford at home, and then a potentially more manageable Texas game by that point in the year because Texas, again, I think Mississippi State's going to pop Texas, and then I think Georgia will pop Texas. So I think Texas will be sitting there with four losses at that point and not nearly as much to play for. So A&M, and again, I don't know how the tiebreakers would break down in that situation if I don't know because Georgia doesn't play LSU and they don't play Missouri, how the tiebreakers, because it's normally a common opponents thing.
Right.
So
It's going to
I'm
be a
not entirely
mess.
sure. Yeah. So that's how I would say. I think that Georgia and Alabama are on a rematch collision course right now. But again, so looking at Georgia's schedule, bye week this week, then the world's largest outdoor cocktail party against Florida, where that'll be a really interesting game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Billy Napier just being let go. Teams typically, there's a little bit of a sugar high for,
Yes.
so
We've
what
seen it
happens
this year
there?
already. We've seen it. UCLA,
To
it's
Mississippi
happening.
State.
Arkansas, it's happening.
It is to Mississippi State, home for Texas, home for Charlotte, and then good old fashioned clean hatred in Mercedes Benz, not in Bobby Dodd. Little disappointing, obviously
Yeah.
there. We're fans of the you know on campus games,
Yes.
but so I think
The
Georgia's got a very manageable schedule at this point. They've gotten through their meat and potatoes more, but again, this is not a vintage Georgia team.
right. Right.
Nothing is given. This is not a vintage Alabama team. Nothing is
Right.
given.
Yeah.
So
And I still think both those teams have the potential to trip up. And Reagan, I trust those two. That's what I'm gonna pick is a rematch for them in the SEC championship. But I really, my gut feel says there's gonna be a sneaky team in there. And I said it at the beginning, and they're hosting College Game Day this weekend. We have to talk about Vanderbilt. So before this podcast ends, if you're
yeah,
still with us, thanks for being with us. Vanderbilt, man, if they get through this one, it's huge for them, man. Huge. We're talking about Vanderbilt. If they win this one, they go on the road to Texas. We already know that Diego Pavia, going back to his New Mexico State days, owns Auburn. So they get Auburn at home. They get Kentucky at home. I really like him in those two. And then they close the year with that Tennessee game that we talked about earlier. Do you think that Vanderbilt can get through these next two with Missouri and Texas?
I really want to say yes. I really do. I think they'll get through Missouri on the road against Texas. That's a brutal spot. And then it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Auburn this weekend because if Auburn can catch a little bit of momentum, they've played well. This is not a Auburn is not a dead team yet. They've not given up. This is not a Penn State.
Yeah.
So that'll be man, they've got a brutal end to the schedule. I would lean towards of those three games, Missouri, Texas, and Auburn. I think Vanderbilt probably gets two.
And if they
That's what
do,
I would
that's
say.
impressive, man.
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
looking
it's
at 10
very.
and 2 heading into your last two against Kentucky and Tennessee. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would have called that.
Yeah, they might be 9-2 sitting there with their last potentially play-in playoff game
Yeah.
against Tennessee, man.
It's
That
massive. Massive.
unreal.
Hey, I have a funny comparison for you here. I think that right now, and this is wild to say this, Auburn is the knockoff version of Vanderbilt. Tough,
Hmm.
gritty team. Defense, sloppy on offense, but man, you know, again, I said knockoff. I'm not saying Jackson Arnold is Diego
You know,
Pavia, but I'm saying the way that Jackson Arnold intends to use his legs or could at his best, and the way that that offense is probably meant to play a little more keep away and keep defenses off balance. Funny enough, I think Auburn is the knockoff Vanderbilt right now, which is
that's not
insane.
that is that's not even Kirkland brand knockoff. We're talking great value Walmart knockoff, man, right now because man, to compare Jackson Arnold to Diego Pavia laner, man, that is sacrilegious, brother. And then Clark Lee right now has got every I'm messing with
I
you.
love it. I love
I
it.
get I get what you're saying, but man, that is some knockoff, those flimsy plates compared to Dixie where the commercial where the food's falling off the plate.
Yeah, you better have three
Um
of them under there.
and that you got to have that wicker little basket thing holding the plate. You know what I'm saying? If you
That's
know,
too
growing
good.
up. Yeah.
You're killing me, Reagan.
But
That's hilarious.
man, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Vanderbilt. Another one out there. Again, we already talked about Miami. does Notre Dame close out the year? They've got to continue to play to that standard, and they
Yeah.
kind of got to hope. They've almost got to hope that A&M starts slipping up, or that Miami. The worst case for them, truly the worst case for Notre. There is a bad scenario for them where they could be 10-2 and not make the
Hmm.
playoff. And I think that the scenario is this. I think if Miami runs the table, they're 11-1, they're in. I think that if Virginia and Georgia Tech, if Georgia Tech manages to beat Georgia in that game to
Oh
close out
yeah.
the year,
They're
and
in.
then and if Virginia runs the table and they're 11-1, they play each other in Charlotte. If Virginia pops Tech, then you've got three ACC teams. You've got two Big Ten teams. I think we've got those penciled in Indiana and
And
Ohio
likely
State.
a third one with Oregon.
Likely a third one in Oregon. Let's just play this out. So that's six, a G5 team for seven, a Big 12 champ for eight, an SEC champ for nine. They're not going to leave the SEC championship game loser out in my mind. So that's
Yeah, I agree.
10. And then all of a sudden, Notre Dame is sitting there in the pot in that pool of a bunch of potential 10-2 SEC teams. If A&M is sitting there at 10-2, they have that head-to-head win over them. That's a
Yes.
realistic scenario. So
Yeah.
then all of a sudden Notre Dame gets boxed out potentially, where
Yeah.
maybe they're that 12th team, but man,
You know what would be really funny, Reagan, is if one of those 10-2 teams is Vanderbilt and everybody that screams SEC bias is going to have to realize it's really just brand bias because you're
yeah,
going to have to put 10-2 Vanderbilt in over 10-2 Notre Dame.
which is
There,
not going to happen unfortunately.
I don't see it happening with a lot of teams, but there could be a lot of 10-2 teams. And I'm talking Big Ten has a lot of them out there right now. Like, again, some of these teams already played each other. So, like, a USC is a two-loss team, an Illinois is a two-loss team, a Michigan is a two-loss team, a Washington. I don't see a handful of them running the table the rest of the way, but they could. And we could be looking at like 10 deep on 10-2 teams, and there's not
Yeah.
enough spots for them. It's gonna be
And
wicked, man.
And if Georgia is sitting there at 10-2 and they don't make the conference championship, Georgia has a much stronger strength of record and strength of schedule. So, and
100%.
that brand where Notre Dame against the Georgia brand, that could be the difference between that 12th the at-large bid right there. And that would be a terrible situation for them to find
Yeah,
themselves in.
you're not kidding because obviously Notre Dame got Georgia last year, which was crazy and a huge deal for Notre Dame. They broke through that glass ceiling, right? That I didn't think they could do, and they did it. But when you move on from last year, when you forget the brands and you look at strength of record and what these teams have done, it's not even close, man. Georgia's already in half a season got more than what I think Notre Dame will be able to show in a full season. So
Agreed.
it's crazy, man. Well, dude, this was really fun. Anything we missed? Any final thoughts?
Man, nothing sticks out to me right now. Coaching carousel could get just crazy if
Yeah.
your prediction from a couple weeks ago becomes true. If that LSU job becomes open, that throws everything at Penn State into disarray. That throws everything at Florida into disarray because you've got a job opening that is better than both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think we're going to see James Franklin land somewhere. I
Oh yeah.
I don't get the feel that he wants to take a year off. I get the feel that James Franklin is going to be coaching somewhere significant next season.
Yeah, he was saying that on game day this past weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Whew,
mean, to be
man.
go from undefeated number two team in the country 3 weeks later out of a job.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy, man. And there's some spots out there where he could land. We could see some really fun stuff, man. Several weeks ago, we talked about potentially John Gruden coaching in Arkansas or somewhere in the SEC. There's some really fun stuff out there, man, that could happen. And how much are these games going to play into that? If Eli Drinkowitz drops this one at Vandy and Missouri starts to go off the rails, he has a job opportunity out there? Is he jump ship? So there's some big time stuff happening still on the radar. Reagan, this was a blast of an episode with you, man. College football has been absolute cinema this year.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. Man,
Hey,
everyone needs to enjoy it while you can. It's very quickly. We're already past the midway point of the season. Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy that cold weather for anybody. It's coming, I know, for anybody north of Florida, basically, which is where we both live. Enjoy it, man. It'll come and go, and then all of a sudden we'll be in February just sitting there. All right, what's there to talk about now? So enjoy it. It's a
Yep.
beautiful season. It's going to be a great end of the year. I really believe that.
Absolutely. It has flown by too, man. Great word, Reagan. And once again, thanks to our partners at DuckBuck. Visit duckbuckco.com. We got the hats helping
Hey,
us out.
shout out to Duckbuck, putting us on their IG.
Yeah, let's go,
Yeah.
man. Oh, yeah.
So, and shout out to you. Thank you for having me on, man. I thoroughly enjoyed, guest hosting, whatever with you the last month or two. It's been a lot of fun, man.
Man, Reagan, at this point, you're a regular. You're not even a guest anymore.
Hey, we'll be pumping out content in the off season. I hope.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely,
So
absolutely. And honestly, Reagan, shout out to our YouTube, and you were the one that encouraged me to get that going. Man, the YouTube Shorts have been hitting. We've been putting the full episodes on there lately. So man, if you prefer visual and you're listening on audio, we've been hitting the YouTube hot and heavy. So make sure you sub there at Laners College Football. We've been really enjoying it.
love it, man.
Well, that's it. That's enough for this episode, man. Week 9 is going to be awesome. Reagan, thanks for jumping on. This is your host, Laner, signing off.